my perspective is that actually resilience, the whakapapa of it is that actually when they were looking at Indigenous peoples in Hawaii, the psychologists were there and they were trying to look at psychopathology, and they were looking at Indigenous people there, and they were looking at all these really negative things like colonization, and they were looking at poverty, and they were looking at a whole bunch of stuff, and they followed these children longitudinally, and what they did was that they actually found that most of those children did okay, and they were quite surprised at this process. And what resilience kind of came out of was that actually, despite these crappy environments that these children were living in, they actually did really well. And so essentially, resilience is a process of adaptation to a negative event or crappy environmental situations. Now, what the psychologists then did, though, was that they looked at individual factors rather than the broader ecosystem stuff. And I think that's where the literature has mainly gone. But if I think about that from a quantitative perspective, mostly that's around, actually, it's much easier to measure individual factors than it is to measure environmental factors. People are starting to say that this individual or these groups of people are not resilient enough. And I think that's a really incorrect and offensive way to use the concept of resilience. And they've started to apply it to the individual rather than kind of understanding that it's a process, and processes are influenced by multiple different things, not just one thing. I actually think that in New Zealand we've picked up the idea of resilience and policy much faster than they have in the United States, because their political system is a huge machine. But I think they've picked it up in a way that really doesn't acknowledge what the implications are. I think what they see is the individuals. They don't see that actually, if they're going to pick it up, resilience really is talking about social determinants. It's really talking about the bigger picture stuff. But what they focus on is the individual stuff. And it's a real swing, I think, in our national government at present around bringing health behaviours to be the responsibility of the individual and their family rather than a broader collective understanding of that.